everybody, and welcome to episode 118. Ian Riccaboni and his mustache, Cary Silkin without a mustache, AJ, our producer, with a beard and a mustache. We're excited, Cary. We're in the home stretch, and we have a good one. I just discovered something about this card, about these. We're doing the 5-minute history lessons of all 122 cards in the set. This card, I know I was disappointed that, we just did him 8 days ago or 7 days ago. But he's got a guy on the card. I'm going to see if you can recognize him too. So the name of this 55 and 5-minute history lessons about each card in the 55 Parkhurst set. We find and do some interesting things. There's the guys with no names, the guys with Hall of Fame careers. This is a Hall of Famer, bona fide A-list number 1. We talked about Yvon Robert being in the top 10 of the Canadian wrestling lore. Lou Thesz very clearly in the top 5 of wrestling, period, maybe. But I just noticed something on the back of that card as I set the 5 minutes. There's another guy that I don't know has very many cards. I think he has one. Do you know who the man in the blue jacket is? Former world champion.
Wrestling,
yeah.
Is it Strangler?
It is, yeah.
It's the best guess I could come up with.
Yeah. Apparently he was his manager in some towns. I just read that off the back of the card.
Yeah. Now, what was there? I'll tell these stories on Last Stop Penn Station about 50 years ago. Like I'm ringing a bell, but yet 9 days ago when we showed. What was the Parkhurst reason for 2 Thesz editions?
I think just because he's that big of a star.
Right.
Because Yvon Robert has 2.
Okay.
Spoiler, Anthony Naraka's coming again. Spoiler, the Duseks are coming again. Mike Sharp, who we went through twice. One of them was an action shot, was the short arm scissor. The other, he looks exhausted, which normally I'd say, why would you picture somebody as exhausted? But here's a man who's known for going 90 minutes.
Well, boys and girls, if you don't know the name Lou Thesz, we're talking a Babe Ruth of pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Held the World's Championship, and then the NWA Championship many times, many lengths. Ian will have all the details, but I think he was was he possibly a World's Champion in the 30s? Yeah,
he was a combined 3,749 It as NWA World Champion, as the lineage there. He did have he had the AWA Paul Bowser title in 37. The story we told last time was that he wasn't quite sure if he hooked himself into the finish or if it was if it was cooperative or if he hooked the finish. And he wasn't quite sure because at the time, there was a lot of double crosses in the mid 30s and late 30s. It kind of eroded the public's confidence in pro wrestling. It was on the front page of the New York Times at one point about some of these double crosses, and some fans were like, "Oh my God," and walked away from wrestling. And others were like, "Yeah, it's wrestling. We know," which is interesting to think about even in 1930 that there was that curtain being pulled back. But it even kind of fooled Lou Thesz to a degree, at least the way he tells the story. He was recruited at a high school by Tom Pax in St. Louis, trained by George Tragos and Ray Steele, then Ed Santel and Ed Strangler Lewis from age 17. So he was the anointed one, I think, right out of the gate. Won the NWA title for the first time, defeating Everett Marshall in 39. Again in 48 by defeating Wild Bill Longson, who's kind of the World War II era champion who kept getting the title back. Biggest thing he did, we talked about it a couple of times, he sought out to unify all the championships because the National Wrestling Alliance, they wanted to be the premier organization, and they knew, it was for money reasons, but they knew that if they could get the Los Angeles champion, the Chicago champion, if they could get them all to recognize their guy, they would get a cut every time the champ came around. So from 48 until 49 to 56, Thesz sought out to unify all the titles. The biggest one was against Baron Leone, where they drew the Monster House in Los Angeles. And it took some convincing, but Leone was a businessman and had enough money to retire shortly thereafter.
What's your definition? So make it clearer to me and anyone else who might be thinking, what are they trying to, if he's NWA champion, what are they trying to unify?
They're trying to unify the regional titles. So Baron Leone was the Los Angeles champion of its time. And after that, he defeated Leone, so they would weave that title in. And, the WWA title would pop up later, but it was recognized then that, okay, you have your championship for here, but the real world champion is Thesz. So the champ, and we're going to acknowledge that he's going to come around once every month or once every 2 months, and maybe Leone will get a shot this time, or Gorgeous George will get a shot, but our champion will stay here.
Gotcha.
But he might get first dibs on Thesz. So Thesz essentially went around, and they had the reason and the confidence to do it. Number one, because he was a draw. Number two, he could handle himself. Yeah.
And his career went on into the 80s?
1990.
Okay.
1990, he had his final match in Japan. Respected over there. His nickname was Tetsujin, meaning Iron Man.
Okay.
So he drew big money. Speaking of Japan, he saw Japan as a market that was growing because of the Sharps and because of this group and that group. Fought Ricky Dozen in 56, which helps blow up that territory, helps just ignite it and set it on fire over there. He invented a whole bunch of moves and holds. The belly to back waistlock suplex, which is now the German suplex. The Thesz press, the step over toe hold face lock, the STF, and one of the original power bombs.
Well, I always had this when I was a kid, and I started getting the wrestling magazines, and I realized that Thesz was a Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, maybe Thesz, I was 10 years old, maybe Thesz will come to New York and wrestle Bruno. And they even teased it in the wrestling magazines.
Yeah.
But neither company, NWA or Vince McMahon's father, they didn't need. They were supposed to have a match in Florida or something, and they didn't need to do it. It was just better for each of them, so it never happened. Yeah. But I was always hoping it would be a natural.
I think he had one battle royal in the WWF, a legend. I think he was in that Legends battle royal, but I think that's it. But what a career from 1932 to 1990. Thesz.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And one of the very best, one of the very few wrestlers who've wrestled in 7 decades, which includes
Bushwhacker Luke.
Bushwhacker Luke as well. So there you have it. Thesz, episode 118, a repeat, but a good one. Always fun to relive the career of Thesz. Tomorrow, Cary, we're at 119. We got a double repeat tomorrow. Right. Hit you with some double action tomorrow. It's a tag team. We've done the tag teams and then split. We're doing the inverse. We've done each of the two men, and we're going together tomorrow. So that should be a lot of fun. Maybe I'll shave the mustache tomorrow. Who knows? Tune in to find out. For AJ, our producer, Cary Silkin and I, Rick Abani. Happy wrestling, everybody.